Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the ARGO Blockchain PLC post-GM Investor Q&A. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just please simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and, where appropriate, publish responses. These will be available via your Investor Meet Company dashboard, and we will send you an email to notify you when they're ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that this meeting is being recorded. Before we begin, we would like to submit the following poll, and if you'd be so kind to give that your attention, we would be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand over to Peter Wall, CEO from ARGO Blockchain. Good afternoon, Peter.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thanks for having me. ARGO shareholders, welcome to the post-GM presentation. It's going to be a fairly short presentation, a little bit different from our AGM presentation. I think a lot of you would have joined that because, well, we're at a certain point in the process right now where it's challenging for us to well, essentially, we're not allowed to make a ton of comments, as a lot of you know, given where we are in various processes. But let's start with the results of the EGM. Those will be coming out via RNS shortly. But Alex Appleton, our CFO, was the chair of the EGM. I'm still in North America, so was unable to attend. Alex, do you want to share the results and give us a quick report from the meeting? Mr. Appleton, are you there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, it was really good to meet some of the shareholders. I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, it was really good to meet some of the shareholders face to face. Nice to, in this post-COVID world, start to return to something like normal. In terms of the vote itself, we're really pleased that resolutions 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all passed. 2 didn't carry, and we'll be going back. That was the resolution around the equity incentive plan, and we'll be going back to shareholders once we've considered that response and taken the comments on board. So yeah, it was just in general, it was really good to meet people, and I apologize about the lack of camera, but I'm just traveling back from the GM at the moment. Thanks, Peter.
All right. Thanks, Alex. And happy birthday. It was Alex's birthday this past weekend. So I'm not sure how old he turned, but nice that he had an EGM birthday. And happy Labor Day for people who are in North America, because it is a holiday here. Our bank holiday at the start of September is now. Yours, the UK's, was last weekend. So in terms of kind of comments coming out of the EGM, I guess, we've taken, a lot of you sent in questions. I'm going to talk generally about some of those questions that came in, and they fall into various categories. But first, I just want to say thanks for the support and the votes. The resolutions that have passed, resolution 4 and 5 in particular, will allow us to go ahead and do a US IPO. And are really critical milestones in the process. So that's great that we were able to get the support, and thank you, shareholders, for supporting those resolutions. On resolution 2, the equity plan, the equity incentive plan, we hear the message from shareholders that wasn't in the well, it wasn't phrased the right way right now, or it wasn't constructed the way in which shareholders could support it. So we hear that message, and we're going to revert back. We're going to do some thinking about it, and when appropriate, we'll come back to shareholders. In terms of questions that have come in prior to this particular presentation, a lot of you sent them in by email, and they fall into kind of a few different categories. So I'm going to go through the categories that they fall into and say what I can about each category. Some of those types of questions I also addressed in the last Twitter Q&A that we did, that some of you might have watched. The first kind of type of questions that have come in was around OTC listings and ARBKF, and what's going to happen to those shares, the OTC traded shares, once a US listing comes online. As I said in the last RNS or the last operational update video, I can't go into a ton of detail about that process right now, about how that's all going to work. That will be done when it's appropriate later on in the process, and it will all be clear. It's a fairly straightforward process. It's a well-trodden path, but it's not something that we can communicate with folks just yet. The second type of questions that have come in are around tactics, around the IPO. What's the ADR ratio going to be? What's the timing going to be? Who are we going to market the deal to? Those type of things. Again, given we're in a very highly regulated situation right now, we're just not allowed to make comments about those type of things, given where we are in the process. So it would be irresponsible to engage in answering those type of questions right now. Third type of question that we got a lot was about Pluto and an update on the Pluto investment. As I think a lot of shareholders know, we've been interested in Pluto since they first came to us and told us about the project. We continue to engage with them on a weekly basis. We're very much abreast of all of the updates and the plans that they're pursuing. But it's not for us to share with the market, Pluto updates. It's really for them to share with the market, and they'll do so when appropriate. So that's what I can say about Pluto right now. Again, we wouldn't have engaged with them and invested with them if we didn't think that they were onto something. And then another kind of category is just general business updates, when a machine's coming, et cetera, et cetera. We in my last again Twitter Q&A, I gave some kind of updates around that. And when it's appropriate, we will put out an RNS and update the market, as we have in the past, about any business updates that the market needs to know about. We're putting out. But again, because of the off-rate process, you're not going to hear from me a ton between now and when that happens. So for the most part, that's pretty much all I can say in terms of those various pieces, and those were the four types of categories that we identified. Alex, did you want to add anything to that? Did I miss anything on those updates?
No, I think that pretty much covers it, Peter. We are in a process at the moment, and that process is restrictive. So there's not much more we can really add.
Okay. I'm just looking at some of the questions that are coming in now. And again, a lot of those questions fall into the same kind of four categories that I just identified. So, I can't really get into that kind of nitty gritty of details, other than what we've put out to the market and what you've seen. It just wouldn't be appropriate right now. If there's any super general questions, we can just leave it open for a minute here and see if any of those type of questions come in. But so far, I haven't seen any questions like that would be appropriate to engage with.
Peter, may I suggest, let's just let investors put some things through. Obviously, thank you firstly to everybody that's taken the time to submit. And of course, there are quite a few, as you can see, coming through that, as you say, have already fallen into the categories you mentioned. But we will make these available to you as well afterwards, just in case we miss any. But as you can see, Roland, David, Jamie, that all these questions are now starting to pop through. Yeah. So if we leave it a minute, and then perhaps you can just scroll by. And in the meantime, perhaps I could just remind investors that after this meeting's finished, we'll be redirecting you in order to give investors. I'm doing not a good job.
Simon T, no, you're doing a great job, Mark. I like it. Simon T, I like your question. Given that you are severely restricted in answering questions, was there any point in having this presentation? It's a good question. I think that the point was, we're committed to transparency as much as we can be, Simon, and this is as transparent as we can be right now. Given it's a very restrictive process, and we got to get it right. We can't mess it up. So, we had one of these processes. We had one of these presentations after the AGM, and People asked a lot of questions, and it was, open season, and that was great. And we'll do that as much as we can. We can't do that right now. Bitcoin to the moon, Jamie, I'm not going to answer that. Obviously, I'm a believer in Bitcoin. Any idea of IPO date? I can't say anything about that. William E. Craig B. How are you feeling about your various ESG initiatives? I can say a bit about that. I'm feeling great. I mean, I think our ESG, strategy that we put out is industry leading. I don't think anyone else has taken the same kind of efforts or initiative or been as thoughtful. The fact that we're the first to sign the UN Climate Now initiative is or Climate Neutral Now initiative is a huge step, and they were excited about it. We've gotten lots of good feedback about it. I think the ESG stuff is good, and we're trying to make it real and not to make it greenwashing, but to actually engage in that world. So I'm feeling like it's a differentiator for us. Can we look at these other questions? General time frame, can't comment on what was done to capitalize on China. Can't comment on right now. How critical is the second resolution on a successful IPO and future investment from U.S. institutions? It's not critical at all. It's about staff remuneration and staff incentives. So it's not, has nothing to do with the IPO in that sense. Are you buying $30 worth of Bitcoin as part of the El Salvador support tomorrow? Join us. Sure. Farhan, I'm in. Done. Good idea. Any specific reason you guys sold 61 Bitcoin last month? I can say a little bit about that. Given our monthly operating costs, given our kind of where we're at this year in our general cash flow and our needs for working capital, we looked at the three levers that we can pull on, which is selling Bitcoin, debt, and raising equity. And that was the right lever to pull on at that time. Don't forget, we bought, we bought 6 million worth of Bitcoin earlier this year that we didn't mine after we did a raise, and so we were up on that investment significantly, and we thought, okay, we're going to take a little bit of that off and put it back into operating expenses. It wasn't a ton, but again, it was just rebalancing our portfolio. We obviously believe, we want to hold Bitcoin as long as we can. But there's times when we're going to have to sell it, and that's we're going to be strategic about it. And so it was a strategic lever to pull on, and that's what we did. But thanks, Arthur. Good question. Peter, can you give us a big smile if ARGO will list on ARGO in the next 2 months? I just smile a lot, Sanji. I can't say anything about that. Jamie, I just answered that one on the rebalancing the portfolio. Mike W, talking with DMG much? Yeah, we talk with DMG every week about our about TerraPool. They're an important partner for us. How long does the IPO process take? I think it's a tricky question. It can take, depends on how long it takes. It's Matt, how are the new Neds settling in? Yeah, our board is awesome. I'm really excited about our board. They're very solid, and what can I say? They bring a lot of value. They have a diverse skill set. I'm very happy with our new board. Any thoughts you could share on exploring the other side USA for mining? I'm not really. Carolyn S, I feel sorry for you, Peter. Some investors have less patience than they do ARGO shares. Keep up the good work, ARGO team. All this. Thank you, Caroline. But you don't need to feel sorry for me. I got a great job. I got a great team. We're hammering away. We're doing our best, and we're making progress. And quarters and years. These things aren't built overnight, and they take time. And there's ebbs and there's flows. And I'm happy with where we're going. Okay, I'm probably going to get in trouble from some lawyers if I continue to talk too much. So, Alex, do you think I've said enough, or what should we do?
You've probably said too much, as you say, according to the lawyers.
Well, look, Peter, why don't I just jump in? Obviously, all these questions we'll make available. If there's anything further to add, perhaps that gives you the opportunity to do so. And if not, we'll publish the responses appropriately, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
So if there is nothing further, Peter, perhaps before I redirect investors to provide you with some of their views and expectations, I could just ask you for a few closing comments just to wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, closing comments. Thanks for the support, shareholders, of getting these 5 resolutions through. Again, they're just critical milestones for us in the process. We're thrilled that we were able to have everyone or have the majority of shareholders where needed come on side, and on to the next step, onwards and upwards.
Peter, thank you very much, and indeed to Alex as well for updating investors this afternoon. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of ARGO Blockchain, I'd like to thank you for attending today's meeting. That now concludes the session. Good afternoon to you all.
Thanks all.